Okay, hello there. Tonight we will be assembling the Aerotech RMS 18/20 motor. In particular the D13 motor. I think it's 7-second delay for me, I think. Can't be sure, but it's essentially the same way for any of them. When you get the reload kit, you'll get all your components, which I have here, excluding those two, and you'll get your motor, or casing as people like to call it, same thing. Yep, the first thing you want to do is you want to get your instructions just here. You never want to leave your instructions behind. You always want to have your instructions, because sometimes you'll forget something and you won't even realize you've forgotten it, and the instructions can help you prevent that. So let's get started. First step is to apply grease to the O-rings and to the casing. I'm going to be applying some to the casing first, as you can see. I just got a little bit of grease that comes supplied with the casing. So put some on the threads, spread it around. It's not really that important, it goes in exact positions. It just kind of has to allow the closures to slide on pretty easily. So that's pretty good. Put some on the aft closure as well. As you can see, my motor casing is looking a little bit worse for wear, but that's alright. Hopefully it won't blow up. Hopefully, it's not really encouraging. Oopsies. Some people like to put a little bit of grease all the way down the casing to help with removal. I generally don't bother. I do it for the bigger ones, the bigger motors, but for something this small, for me cleanup's not such an issue, so I don't generally bother. So, yep, we have to grease the O-rings now. Oopsies. You really don't need much grease for this. It's just to slightly insulate the O-rings so they don't burn so easily, and to protect them from all the residue, so cleanup's a little bit easier. But really, you don't actually even need grease for this, it just helps a bit. Some people like to spit in them. It's perfectly fine, whatever you choose to do, as long as it goes in easily and does not interfere with your motor. Okay, get rid of all the grease off your hands after doing that. You don't want any grease. I still got a little bit of grease on there. Yep, so everything's greased. I got my little O-rings off the side, you can't really see them. The next step is to get your liner assembly. I'll just remove things to make sure the instructions make sense. And to run your fingernail on the inside, thumbnail in my case, on the inside of the liner case. That helps with removing the burr that comes from manufacturing, and now the components will slide in easily. Now it says here to first insert your delay grain, which is the small little piece just there. Does not have any slots in it, it's just a solid piece. You've got to mount that flush with the end of the tube, like so. Nice and flush. The next step says to put in a spacer if it's supplied with a reload kit, but I don't have a spacer in mine. So if you did have a spacer, you just put it down the other end, down there, just to properly space the delay grain. Insert the propellant grain. Okay, so the next step is to insert the propellant, which is this one with the C-slot grain geometry. Just run your finger again on the inside of the case and just insert that. Should fit in pretty easily because it's got a little bit of give due to the slot. Now it's important, it says here that the propellant grain should stick out by 3/32 of an inch, or I'd say about 1.5 millimeters. If it does not, then you've got a problem. You're probably missing a delay element, or if it's sticking out too far, I'm not really sure why that is. Try speaking to someone else near you. Yeah, that shouldn't be happening if that's actually the case. You've probably got a problem. Just check that all your parts are the correct parts and you haven't got anything extra in there. Okay, so the next step is to insert this whole assembly thing inside the case. That's very, very easy. Not exactly a hard step. It should be evenly spaced between the two ends of the case. I'll just push it in a little bit further. Yeah, a bit of a tight fit. It's not very good, but oh well. Should be all good. Once I push it back down. Not sure why it's such a tight fit. Might edit this out of the video if it's taking too long. Okay, it's all good. Thread the forward. Sorry, I'm missing a step. You have to get the thicker of the two O-rings, or 30/32 of an inch, and place that next to the delay grain, which is not the slotted grain but the solid grain. As you can see there, put that in there. And yep, thread the forward closure on as tight as it will go. Now that end and the internal components of the engine are all done. It's pretty simple. Next you install the copperhead igniter. When you get the copperhead igniter, it comes in a little tube, as you can see here. Pull out of the tube and straighten it out. Be careful not to straighten it too far, just be gentle with it because they are a bit delicate. There's a whole bunch of things to help you with the reliability of copperheads, which is not always the best. You can run a hobby knife down the side of the copperhead to remove some of the sometimes little flashing that's left on the side. I'm not going to bother because I really don't care all that much. If it doesn't burn on the first go, I can just put another igniter if I really need to. Yep, so get your motor assembly and place the copperhead into the motor, into the slot, which might be a little bit tricky, but push it down as far as it will go. It should go in most of the way into the motor because it is a composite motor, and whoopsies, forgetting the cameras, which way the camera's facing. So insert it the whole way. The next step is to get your nozzle. I have my nozzle here, and sometimes the nozzles have a little bit of plastic that's blocking up the nozzle. Always check to make sure that is not there. Otherwise, firstly, your motor will not go together correctly, and if it does, then I'm not really sure how, but it'll probably blow up in the process, which is again not very good. If there is a little bit of plastic in there and you can't see cleanly through it, like you should be able to see it pretty easily on the camera. If it is a bit fuzzy, sorry. Just get your hobby knife and put it down the nozzle and just twist it around to clean out all the excess. And there it is. Now place that over the copperhead igniter and down into your motor assembly. Next is to install the smaller of the two O-rings, so the skinnier, not really the smaller, the two O-rings on top of the motor. Just run it down the copperhead igniter and put it around the motor. It's pretty simple. And in terms of motor assembly, the last step is to put on the aft closure. This might be a bit of a tight fit. I have this little tool called the what is it called? RMS aft closure wrench, I think. And whatever it is, it helps with construction of the motor a lot. It's not necessary that you have one. If you don't have one, you can just get a bit of paper towel. So I'm just going to steal a bit of paper towel from over here. And this is a horrible scrap of paper towel, but I'll show you. Just twist it as tight as you can to get a little bit better grip. Make sure that's really tight. You don't want that to be in any way loose, otherwise your motor can come apart during flight, which is again not good. so tighten that up really well. That is the direct motor assembled. Now we just have to install the nozzle cap and the ejection charge well cap thing. Next step is to install the ejection charge. So this little assembly will come as shown. That part contains the black powder, that part contains nothing. You should be able to see that. Gently, and I do say gently for a reason, ease the two parts apart. Make sure that the big part is, the wider part is facing down, otherwise you will get black powder everywhere, which is not a good idea. There we are, that comes off, and to mount the two parts together, simply place that down on the table, like so, and see the skinnier part at the front of the motor, simply jam that down on top. Should click a bit, and mine's a bit of a loose fit. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but it should work. Might hold that down with a bit of tape just to be secure. There you are. Now the next step is to place the nozzle cap over the nozzle. You don't have to do it beforehand, but I like to bend the copper head. It is recommended in the instructions, I think. Oh no, not in these instructions. Bend down the copper head a bit just so it doesn't crimp when you place the nozzle cap down. And put the nozzle cap over the top of that. Now it should be a fairly loose fit, snug enough that it ain't going to come off too easily, but it should be a fairly loose fit. If it's too tight, then remove it, and I've already done this. Cut a hole, a little slit down the side of the cap. Just that'll make it a little bit looser so it goes on fairly easily, which it does for me. That will just hold the igniter in there until it blows off. Now there's a little bit of a hole there, but I would recommend that you cut, before you place that on and start trying to fire the motor, you cut a little pressure release hole in the tip of the cap. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to release a little bit of pressure so the cap is not spat off as soon as the igniter fired, which would not be the best in terms of reliability. And there you can see inside the motor kind of. That is your finished RMS 18/20 motor. That's the D13-7, I think. That's it. It's pretty simple. And good night.